And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Pay Evo live stream, 2 p.m. Eastern time, same place. And I, of course, have Juliana with me in today's live stream. What's going on, Juliana?
Hey, not much. Happy Friday afternoon. Um, Glad we get to chat.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, for those who don't know me, my name is Leaf. I'm a marketing specialist here at Payment Evolution. Today's topic is one that many of us can probably relate to, and it is work from home productivity hacks. I know a lot of people right now, if they're working or employed, are generally going to be working from home. So we thought it'd be a good idea to share with you some of the productivity hacks myself and Juliana have used to be productive as heck while working from home.
Yeah. Well, and the really cool thing is you and I are both nerds about this stuff. Like obviously we prepare to have these chats and we work with topics that we can actually add value into people's lives with, right? But on top of that, we are both big productivity nerds. So that's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, I'm also a productivity nerd. I just need to be productive, so I try to. It's not like I look for hacks, but
I actually enjoy it. I
yeah, you
really, yeah, I genuinely enjoy like have you ever heard of a spaghetti diagram?
a spaghetti diagram. No,
Yeah.
is it a
It,
diagram of spaghetti or?
it's essentially you take like a warehouse or an office and you or a grocery store or whatever, and you figure out, what are the paths through, and essentially based on what you need to do, what is the walking distance. Like in a grocery store, you probably want to maximize the length of the spaghetti string. In a manufacturing environment or in your kitchen, you might want to shorten it. You want to keep things that you use at the same time within reach and that sort of thing. I
Ah,
love trimming seconds off of activities. I like
I love.
legitimately love that. I don't know why. I think it's easy to make a big improvements, but once you've made big improvements in terms of your productivity, it's hard to continue to improve. So those little micro improvements, I take great pride in those. Those aren't easy. So
No,
yeah.
you're a big fan. I mean, like even when we talk, you're always talking about how do I automate this? What's the system, automation system, process. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, like she loves this. This is her realm. I'm surprised you're not like a business analyst or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely a nerd about this stuff. But like I guess I still love doing what I do. I just want to do it efficiently. So I don't think I'd be satisfied just working on efficiencies as my profession.
That
Hmm.
is true. That is true. Awesome. Well, since you're a self-proclaimed nerd on this topic, why don't you start us off with the first tip you have? Then I'll share and we'll kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so I think the first tip I have is a pretty general one, and I will try and share some practical ones too, because I think mindset's important, and then actually something walking away with something you can do. I think those are sort of the balance in walking away from something like this with value. So the high level tip that I'm going to share is there are a lot of rules that we live by, and we don't necessarily recognize that they're rules. They just become habits. They become standard operating procedure. And that's okay when life looks and behaves like it usually does. When we are thrown for a loop like we are right now in the midst of, a new lockdown in Toronto and, all over the world dealing with work from home scenarios, we need to recognize what the rules are that we've been living by, because we need to break those rules.
Okay.
You are ultimately operating by a set of rules. Your situation has changed. You need to create new rules in order to be productive. But in order to do that, you need to let go of the habits that don't serve you right now. You know, the the
Right.
the,
Right.
the BS stuff that you pick up over the years and you just do every day because that's what you've always done, might not serve you now. So rethink your paradigm, break those rules, and you can make them again, but you need to rethink it. Don't just do what you've always done. That is like the number one way to not be productive when everything around you has changed.
Wow, you went so deep that you talked about mindset and paradigm shifts. I'm here with my list being like, oh, plan your day. And you're here, reform the mindset and give this paradigm shift. What the heck?
It really does matter though, like to have both, to have the practical examples, and then
Yeah.
to have a theory that you believe in. I think, anyways. But the reason I say that is because there's so many of us that we're looking at ourselves saying, well, I'm still using my calendar, and I'm still scheduling this and that and the other, and wondering why we feel so unproductive, because we're not working with the same, we're not playing on the same stage. Things have changed.
Right,
So
right.
everything needs to be rethought. That's my thinking anyway.
Yeah, for sure. A big change, COVID-19, work from home. So the same productivity hacks you used before COVID is probably not the same when we are COVID. It's funny because before, if outside of work, I'd do like a speaking engagement, come home and all this. And, it requires a mindset shift to go on a speaking engagement right after work and everything. And there's like buffer time. Nowadays, everything's on my laptop. So 2 minutes after work, jump into a speaking engagement in front of 100 people and then turn off the laptop and then go talk to us. Like everything got cut. It's not like
Yes.
big chunks in the calendar. It's like little blocks of things.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
different mindset shift.
Yeah. And there's something about our physical space and our physical stature and posture and all of that, and how that plays into whether we feel like something's changed. So maybe my task has changed. Maybe like right now I'm doing a live stream, and in 20 minutes or whatever, I'll be, just doing some desk work. But everything around me has changed. And if I don't internalize that, if I don't internalize the fact that this is completely different than it's going to be in an hour when I'm working here by myself, then
Yeah.
I'm not going to operate at my most efficient, for when I'm doing a panel or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard people say things like, get up and get dressed every day as if you were going to work. And I have some opinions about that, but that's a perfect example. You did that every day because you were going to work. So now that you're not going to work physically, that doesn't mean live in your pajamas and don't shower for a week, right? It also doesn't mean you have to do it every single day. Now you need
Right.
to rethink that completely. Well, shower, absolutely, and
Right.
get
Yeah.
dressed. You should do those things. But that's not what I mean. What I mean is, you don't have to put on your makeup every day as if you're going to, be in front of your board, doing a presentation or something like that. You need to decide again what those rules are. But you need rules. You definitely need rules.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like from what you're saying, you got to schedule time to do that reflection piece and not just kind of throw that away and just, look at top 10 work from home productivity hacks on entrepreneur.com and try to follow those.
Yeah, totally. And that's great. Like, someone's writing articles and handpicking these great strategies. Look at them and then pick out what works for you. Um,
Exactly.
so you had kind of like just brushed over that practical one, that first one you mentioned, but I actually think it's pretty important. So I want to give it the time and space. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Also, before I jump in, if you guys have any productivity tips you'd like to share or anything, or maybe something we don't cover, make sure you comment down below wherever you're watching this, and we'll put your comments on the screen and we'll actually shout you out. So if you want to get some recognition for your awesome productivity tip, be sure to comment down below. But yeah, what I said was, I think from what I remember, is you gotta plan things out. This is only recently I'm actually really doing it. So if I ever have to do things and it's a bunch of things, I always like take like 10 minutes before I even jump into like a work session. Just plan out, okay, I'll do this,
Yeah.
this, and I'll write it down, and that'll give me enough time to do this. But this has to be posted later today because I have a meeting, and it just makes everything organized. So like I do it with my week, so I'll know exactly when to do when. So then I'm never in like, what do I need to do now? Okay, let me just do this. And then like I'll barrel through it and I realize, oh my God, I should have done this earlier and this, and you're in a mess and everything. But when you take the
Totally.
time to plan it, I find that it's a matter of like laying the land out, and you just do, and then you're less stressed and anxious.
Yeah, yeah, and there's something behind why that is so powerful. And I can't remember off the top of my head all the science behind it, but like we get decision making fatigue, right? Like we are actually fatigued by making more and more decisions throughout the day, and the more decisions we make, the less we're able to make thoughtful decisions and intentional decisions. And so that's why, some of us, me included, me maybe first, like I can make really, really great healthy food decisions earlier in the day. And then later in the day, like by the end of the day, I'm like staring at that jug of Nutella going, no one's watching, you know.
Uh,
And I just don't have the same stamina, the same level of thinking, right? And so they actually say remove the decision making from your life that you can automate, that you can turn into a habit, that you can make obvious, so that when you're making a decision, you're making a net new decision. Spend your mental
mhm,
energy where it adds value, rather than
mhm.
looking at your exercise bike and asking yourself, oh, I don't know, do I want to? Do I not want to? Think about how long we hum and haw over some decisions.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, if you told yourself, I can't shower till I go 10 minutes really hard on my bike or my elliptical or whatever, or jump rope, now
Right.
suddenly, you're creating a dynamic where that's part of your thing, that's part of your routine. Uh,
100%. Totally agree. And you know what? We actually have a comment from
Ooh.
Miss Glenn Real. Are you? Do you
Oh.
know? Do you know her? Or
I recognize your name, and I feel like maybe we've commented back and forth recently, and I hope that I'm actually remembering the right person. So I'm so honored that you tuned in, and even if you're not the person that I'm remembering, I'm still honored that you tuned in. And teachers have a lot to teach us, I think, about the fact that planning is so important, because you know Ms. Glenn here is not just planning to keep herself efficient. Like, you're literally juggling, and I don't know what age group you're working with, but when you're juggling a bunch of 14-year-olds or 7-year-olds, there are so many different distractions and interruptions that come up during the day. And I know with my son, who's 10, it is so important for him. Fourth grade, she just shared, awesome, and that's kind of in the stage that my son is at. If he doesn't know in advance what the day is going to look like, he is disruptive. He's got some behavioral issues. He's awesome. He's super smart, but it serves everybody really well when he knows what the day is going to look like. And I can only imagine. I actually am really, really grateful for teachers, because I think it's critical work, and it's work I can't do. I have enough of a challenge planning and managing for myself, but I am so grateful for
yeah.
that. So yeah, perspective is everything. Other folks from other professions, please feel free to comment, because I think we can all teach each other so much just because of perspective. So thanks so much for contributing that that validation around planning being so powerful. Thank you, Ms. Glenn.
Awesome. Wow. Look at that engagement. Yeah. So next tip I'd probably add to that is don't just plan your tasks, plan your energy. So I used to do this thing where I try waking up early morning to work out and then do the rest of my day. But then I realized after I wake up in the morning and I do the workout, I'm exhausted and I actually feel tired throughout the day. So I don't even do my best work throughout the day. Then I realized, okay, I gotta plan for my energy. Okay, so work out in the evening after work. So therefore I have the energy to work out. And by the time I'm done working out, I can have a nice sleep. So prioritizing like energy, like if you have a huge meeting and you are generally as someone who finds meetings exhausting and you run out of energy from them, and then you plan like a big task after that, that might be a little like might not be the most effective. So you might want to schedule your task before the meeting and then have the meeting afterwards. So again, managing your energy.
Well, and there's something that I think is critical from what you just said, but you didn't outright say the word, around self-awareness. Knowing what works for you is so powerful. Ms. Glenn just commented again saying, my class is self-contained. And I'm curious about what that means specifically. Do you mean that, like, essentially you're all in one classroom or something to that effect? And the reason I ask is because I really do think that form and function matter. Um, let's see here. We got a reply. Teach all subjects. Scheduling is important. I'm still attending all staff meetings virtually. Okay, cool. So that's very interesting. And that's very much like, I think, any office job, right? Like, the fact that you might be sitting at the same desk all day, but you are actually jumping from task to task. So you need to be able to go from, in the case of a teacher, from science to English, math to art. As an office worker, you're probably going from, meeting to desk work to collaboration time, and then when you're working from home, you lose all of those elements that help you compartmentalize the day. And you need to be that energy. You need to be the one who drives that compartmentalization. And scheduling, planning is key. Being self-aware and knowing what works best for you. And I also want to steal this reference from a classroom example as well. So it's so important to be self-aware, which you were just pointing out with your example, Elif. But if you add to that the fact that when you're working with other people, being aware, I call it social awareness, being aware of the folks that you need to deal with and planning accordingly is a very powerful step to getting what you want. And I always talk to you, Elif, about managing up. Like when you need an approval from me, I'm like, well, if you just ask me for it, I'm bad at it. But if you block 20 minutes and say, I'm not leaving you alone till it's done, then I'll give it to you in 3, you know? But but it's hard for me to move from something that I've been focusing on, but I move to people very, very easily. That comes naturally to me. If someone just said, hey, I have a question, you know? So yeah, managing yourself, managing those around you, that awareness is huge.
Yeah, you might be jumping in a meeting with someone exhausting and then, managing that, right? No, you're not exhausting. You're awesome.
Nice of you to say.
I know we're live stream, so I gotta be careful right now.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. And I had to pull up this quote. I'm sure it's overused, but this talk about planning. Abraham Lincoln said, "If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Goodness gracious! And I love those sort of anecdotal ways of sharing the same principle, because it'll just land differently and it'll mean something more to you when you hear it in a different way. And I think not many of us are chopping down trees these days, but it's so easy when you're doing the same thing over and over again to forget the prep. It's kind of like if you're into sports, as a not a professional, amateur, you might just go out into the field behind your house with some friends and play soccer and not stretch. But if you're a pro, you know how critically important it is to warm up. So yeah, that prep, that is a definitely a professional level hack.
Yeah, for sure. And to add to that, my next tip would probably be, so I learned this recently, but I'm not doing it right now. I do plan to try it consciously. But basically the idea here is you do 45-minute rush of work. Then in the 15 minutes, you take a break or go outside, grab water or whatever. And before you jump back to another 45-minute session, you ask yourself, what's the best way I can spend the next 45 minutes on? Like, what's the best thing I can spend the next 45 minutes on? And then you jump back into the work, and it's like a break, go, and it'll help you like sustain yourself longer and work longer periods of time and be overall more productive if you do that approach. So I definitely want to try this out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in terms of being intentional versus default behavior, so this idea of taking a break, creating a compartment in time, coming back and thinking intentionally about what you want to get done in the next 45 minutes. It's a very intentional approach. And this comes back to what I was saying earlier about the rules. We need to break the rules that we used to live by. And some of those rules weren't necessarily good. But when I say rules, part of what I mean is that default behavior. And I was once at a conference and I heard the speaker use a line that I'll never forget. He talked about prioritizing by invitation. So essentially, he said, how many people in the audience here are guilty of prioritizing their tasks by invitation? Essentially, if you send me an invitation in my calendar, I'm going to accept it. And now suddenly my day's packed with meetings that may or may not serve my goals, that may or may not be aligned with my priorities. But because you invited me and because you found a free time and I just mindlessly hit accept, I'm prioritizing by invitation. And it was interesting because a lot of us laughed. A lot of us were like, yeah, I'm totally guilty of that. So there are a lot of times we need to step back and ask ourselves, what is the point here? What do I really, really want to be doing?
Hmm. Yeah, my friend told me this really cool quote. I was on a call with him this past weekend, and he was like, he works in PwC, and anytime he gets a message, he doesn't reply for like a couple of minutes or like even like 10 minutes or anything. He doesn't make it instinctual to reply because what will happen for him is he's in deep work mode and flow mode, and then the second he comes off, it takes and answers a message and tries to jump back in. It takes time to go back into that like deep
Mm.
work state. So he would voluntarily just not reply for like 30 minutes or until he's done his session, and then he would reply because he's found that most of the messages are generally not that urgent. This is a
Yes.
fascinating approach. I really like that approach.
Yeah, and it's so interesting how all of us have different default behaviors. I think I'm like your friend that way. I'm really good at when I get into something and focused, I'm a machine. Like I can go so fast, but breaking my attention can throw me off completely. And so I need to be intentional about stopping myself and making sure that I am checking messages because I
Hmm.
might have a whole slew of messages that come in and I miss them because I'm so extra hyper focused. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, that awareness piece, we keep coming back to know what works best for you and plan
Hmm.
it into your day.
Exactly. And for those watching, if you are someone who just accepts meeting invitations, just kind of willy nilly, let us know in the comments if that sounds like something you relate to.
Yeah, if you're guilty of prioritizing by calendar invitation, you are not alone. So own it. Let us know. Um,
Exactly.
you're in good company.
So the next step I have is set ground rules for the people you live with. So when I used to live with my parents, I would be working from home and just kind of working and working. But then my mom would just come in the room like, "Hey, Ale, blah, blah, blah. Hey, food, hey, something, whatever." And I'm in the middle of a meeting, and she'd be like, "Oh shoot!" And she'd like hide back, close the door, and run away. And it just got really weird. So I was like, "Hey, listen, like in between 9 to 5, like just don't come in, or just text me if you need something, but like just do not come in the room because." You might be caught in the most embarrassing moment of your life. Who knows? But yeah, setting ground rules for people you live with.
Yeah, yeah, that's brilliant and so so true. Like with kids, you can have a lot of screaming in the background when you don't mean to. My mom, who's very religious, she sounds there's a proper name for it, but she sounds a horn in the morning. And my sister she works. There's like a call center element, and her shift was shifted, and so here my sister was on calls, and my mom in the background was sounding the trumpet, like not what you
Oh
expect to
no.
hear in the background. So yeah, transparency, setting expectations, huge. um, I do want to talk about sort of the next big thing for me. It's practical, but it's also strategic, and that is thinking about your goals, because your goals are should dictate what you're spending your time on. And it's so easy to get busy, and I'm totally guilty of this. There's a lot of busy work, stuff that just takes up a lot of time but doesn't get you closer to your goal. And so you really need to be ruthless about, what do I actually want to achieve? How will I know when I succeeded? And
Hmm.
what are the steps to getting there? And so far this year, only 15 days in, I don't know if I'll be able to maintain this, or if I will even want to maintain this long term. But what I've been doing is, like, I planned my year, my month, my quarter, sorry, my year, quarter, and month, and then I planned, like, in January here, I planned my weeks for the month of January, and I planned every day. And every single night when I go to bed, I check my list again, and I'm like, well, are those still my priorities? Is that Do I still want to get to that goal by the end of the week, or am I off track? Do I need to correct and decide what is going to come off the agenda, because otherwise I won't get to that goal? And then every morning, I revisit that list really quickly. I look at my calendar, I look at my priority list. Anything in my priority list that doesn't have a slot on my calendar will get a slot. And then I just do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so far, so good. Like, I've absolutely hit bumps in the road. Absolutely. Um, but I also, but I also have gotten way more done in the last 15 days than I did intentionally and goal focused in the month of December. Because, and don't get me wrong, I was busy in December. I was so busy. Um, but if you're not being super intentional about what your goals are and what's going to get you there, busy doesn't mean productive. Those are
Yeah,
two very different things. So
yeah.
yeah, that's been working for me.
Exactly. I want to add my next plan. It's like kind of the counter opposite of this, but I find you just gotta sometimes just not do work, or else you're just gonna burn out. And you take 1 day break, but if you don't take that 1 day break, you might burn out and have to take a 6 day break. It's
Yeah,
not effective, and you're just not gonna be a happy person. So I'm starting to realize, I'm just gonna have to do work on like Saturdays or like Friday nights or something.
yeah,
You know?
it's so critical to break, to stop. And here's the thing: we have multiple parts of ourselves that need expression. And so if you love what you do for a living, like me, I'm a total workaholic, and I will work for days and love it, really, really love it. But the fact is, I'm multidimensional. And if I don't stop and express the other parts of who I am, something will snap. Either I'll get extremely exhausted, or suddenly I'll start feeling really lonely or disconnected, or suddenly I just really need to dance it out and I've got all this pent up energy. And that all comes from not expressing all the parts of you. So it
Mhm.
really does require a balance. And sometimes you need to make real time decisions, changes to your plan. If one of those curveballs, one of those parts of who you are needs expression when you weren't planning for it, right? Don't fight it.
Mhm.
It's like an anxiety attack. If you fight it, it gets louder. The best thing you can do is sit back and say, "Isn't it interesting that I can't breathe very well right now?" And just let it happen. Just let it happen. Because as you let it happen, it goes away. And so, yeah, like take these moments. If you are into music, if you have you're a runner, make sure you work all of that into your life, because you can't do all one thing all the time. It's just not possible.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been burnouts where I just feel bland. Like it's not even like a shock. It's just like kind of everything feels bland. And I'm not even that productive. So definitely taking a break. Again, guys, any work from home tips you might want to share with everyone, comment them down below, and we'll put your tip on the screen and give you some recognition. So do that.
I
Next tip. Go
And
ahead.
I kind of jump in just because I am a huge fan of Seth Godin, and he posted uh, he does a daily blog. He's been doing it for like, I don't know,
Yeah.
15 years. He's crazy. He's amazing. And he wrote one the other day that I think is perfect for this moment. It's called Burned Out, Burned In. Burned in is what we look for in an electronic device. It's working perfectly in the groove. Burned out is what happens if we abuse it. Burn in comes from a practice, a generous, persistent approach that's within our control. Burnout, on the other hand, often caused by trying to control things that we can't possibly control. That is that as a result leads us to waste cycles and create patterns of stress. So I really love that because I love to be intense. I want to be burned in, but that leads to
Mhm.
burnout, right? Like you do want to be effective when you're doing your work. And there's two ends of the spectrum here. You need to be sure that you're not overdoing it and burning out ultimately.
Nice. Wow, that's fascinating. I love if you can share me that article
Yeah,
afterwards.
for sure, I will.
Cool, cool. And this is one of my favorite tips, and personally, I go by it. So, have a workspace you like to be in. I love being in this chair, my desk, standing desk, and the monitors, and it just feels nice. And because of that, my chair is super ergonomic, and I like being in the space. So, and it looks again kind of cute and minimal and everything. So, have a work environment you like to be in.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I know that I really love to be in a minimal work environment, but I'm also prone to creating this scenario.
Oh
so
God.
maybe carve out time in your day to clear away the clutter if the clutter affects your productivity and that sort of thing. I actually have uh, like I have my daily to-dos and that list will change. But I also have a list of things that I want to try and do every day. Like I want to stretch every day. I want to hit a certain number of steps every day. And maybe for a lot of us, actually, clearing the clutter should be something we spend 5 minutes on every day. It can really help us zero in, get that burned in focus on the things that we really need to get done. The
Mhm.
non-negotiables, you know?
Non-negotiables, exactly. Perfect. Is there any other tips? That's all my tips, but do you have any other tips you'd like to share?
Let me just think. Like, I think yeah, I think we covered, but I wouldn't mind just quickly summarizing. I think we covered my high points. Like one, you think about your mindset, realize that many of the things that stand in the way of your productivity are probably default behaviors, rules that you don't even realize you set for yourself. They've just always been there. And rethink what works for you. Think about your self-awareness and what works for you. So think contextually, and then also think about the people that you're working with. That is so huge. If you think about like going to a job interview and talking about things that only you care about, and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not answering the questions that you're asked, like that's not success. So think about the
Hmm.
context, the people that you're with. um, be goal focused in the way that you are choosing your activities. Make sure that your activities actually lead to a goal. And that planning in advance piece, I think, goes in there well. And then finally, there are multiple parts of you that need expression. Productivity isn't the only goal. Productivity is a goal that helps you achieve other goals. I love growing businesses. Productivity helps me do that. But I also love spending time with my children. And that is some of the least productive time in my day. And I need it and I love it and they need it. So make sure that you feed all the parts of you. And I know this is
Hmm.
really high level, but I actually think that if you take a few minutes and just meditate on these things, just ask yourself, don't even plan, just ask yourself these questions. Have I rethought the way that I run my day? Do I plan ahead? Do I make sure that I have time for all the parts of me? Do I focus on the goals? Do I even know what they are? Just ask yourself those questions and don't worry about the big picture. Don't worry about optimal performance. Pick one thing and make an incremental change. And the power in that is enormous. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I really hope that some folks do that and get some benefit out of this. We all need this as individual contributors, as entrepreneurs, small business owners, educators, leaders. We all have a lot to get done, and we all have such value to deliver. So hopefully, this will help you get there.
Yeah, exactly. And you pretty much summarized everything on point. And I guess we gotta end the thing there then.
I'm sorry if I hijacked there. I felt like it was also important, and I wanted to say it again.
All
Yeah.
good. So perfect summary. So, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, we'll be back next week with another live stream, same time, same place at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time. You can follow us at paymentevolution.com if you want to check out our website or PayEvo on social media. And where can people find you personally, Juliana?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JTCINA. That's JT China. You can find me on LinkedIn, same thing. Type in my full name or JT China. And also jtchina.com will give you links to all of the places you can find me.
Oh, perfect. You have your own website. Awesome. You have to check your website out, guys. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Juliana. And we'll see you guys next week in next week's live stream.
Thanks for
Bye, guys.
hosting. You're a blast.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.